I ran across a help wanted ad that read like this: position in a fast-paced environment to start immediately. Must be organized, detail-oriented with strong work ethic and excellent communication skills. Ideal candidate is an exceptional problem solver, resourceful, and thrives on creativity. Housekeeping and overtime is required, including with kids. Ability to multitask, cook, and drive are a plus. Unpaid job, vacation time negotiable, call 555-MAMA. What if we had to have a want ad for mamas? Whew, that would be awfully difficult. I love the story about a husband and his daughter who were looking through he and his wife's wedding album, and the dad was thumbing through the photos, reminiscing about the wedding day, and his little girl looked up and asked him, "Daddy, is this the day you got Mommy to come and work for us?" And then there was the teenage girl. It might have been one of these sitting down front, who came down the stairs on Mother's Day and saw her mom doing the dishes, and she said, "Mom, you should not have to do the dishes on Mother's Day." And the mom was touched by her daughter's thoughtfulness, and she was just about to take off her apron when the teenage daughter said, "Don't worry, Mom, those dishes will keep till tomorrow." Mothers of little girls, of little boys, of teenagers, they got a big job. They got a big task. They are often tired. Mothers ought to always memorize Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And in Hebrews chapter 11, we find the story of an Israelite mother, a good mother, who, from all accounts, would not have one single thing changed about her. Her name was Jochebed, and her three kids were Aaron and Miriam, and the most famous of the three, Moses. Jochebed mothered a nation's deliverer. Wow, what a job she did. Now, our text actually credits Moses' upbringing in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23, not only to his mom, but to both of his parents. Moses had the blessing of a good dad as well as a faithful mom. And Exodus 6:20 tells us the dad's name, Amram, and he's going to play a prominent role here in a moment. Amram married his father's sister Jochebed, and she gave birth to his sons Aaron and Moses, and Amram lived to be 137 years old. Exodus provides another detail. In Exodus 2:2, we read, the woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And she saw that he was a, mark this word in your mind, special baby. She saw that he was a special baby and kept him hidden for 3 months. Now, can I ask you a question? Why does the writer of Hebrews speak of the parents of Moses, while the author of Exodus focuses only on the woman? Well, here's what we know. We know that Exodus was written by a full-grown Moses himself, whereas Hebrews was authored by an objective third party many years after the fact. So the perspective of the book of Hebrews over 1,000 years later is from outside the family looking in, a historical perspective. While Moses' perspective was from inside the family looking out, he's drawing from his own memories. And what the child Moses remembered most was the touch and the tenderness of his mother. He recalled Jochebed's tender words, her nurturing manner, and the extraordinary efforts she made to make sure she was able to be his mother. Dad played a valuable role, an indispensable role. No one today either is diminishing the job of a dad, but there's a special relationship between a mother and a child. So I did a little research on this. And I had to do research because I know nothing about tattoos. I don't have a tattoo. I'm not against tattoos. I'm from a generation, I know nothing about them. So I did a little research, and I found out, believe it or not, that mothers' tattoos outnumber dads' tattoos. Does anybody have a guess how much? 30 to 1. 30 to 1 mom or mother tattoos outnumber dad tattoos. And here was the other research I found out about that. Mothers' tattoos are almost always done while they are still alive. Dad tattoos are almost always done after the old man has kicked the bucket. Now, I'm not sure what the message is there, but there's some message there. I can tell you that much for sure. And as I was doing that deep research, I also remembered my many years of research watching football games, which I've had much more experience researching. And I could not think of a single time I ever saw a player on the sideline turn around to the camera and say, "Love you, Dad." And I couldn't count the countless times a player on the sideline has turned around and said, "Hi, Mom. Love you, Mom." Now, both tattoos and waves from a football field are an inexact science. But it says something, doesn't it? It says something about the special nature of mothers. So as we think about mothers today, I want to focus in on three key areas of Moses' mother, Jochebed, and make, I hope, important applications to mothers today, particularly of children still at home. First of all, she protected her child. Amram and Jochebed were quick to recognize that this world is a dangerous place, much more dangerous to them than it is even to you. It's not conducive or safe for rearing children. The world we live in is full of predators and evildoers and people who would love to take advantage of your children and do them harm. And like Amram and Jochebed, it's a parent's duty to hide their children while they are vulnerable and innocent until they grow and stand on their own and can defend themselves. It is a mom's responsibility to hold on to her children and protect them in their formative years. Like an animal in the wild, a mom's instinct is to protect her young, because if parents don't protect their child, who will? See, yesterday's societal support system has disappeared. My parents had lots of help yesterday from the media, from the schools, even the public schools, and from the neighbors. But that help is pretty well gone. And today, apart from the church, parents are sort of on their own. So today, we are facing a situation not quite like Amram and Jochebed, but not entirely dissimilar either. In their case, an evil, power-mongering despot, Egypt's Pharaoh, had ordered the execution of all the Hebrew babies. And he gave an edict to throw them into the Nile, where they would either drown or be eaten by crocodiles. What a choice. And he did this because Pharaoh wanted to crush any idea of a prophesied rival from the Egyptian slaves. So his first plan was to recruit the help of Hebrew midwives and sabotage the delivery of male infants. But the midwives among the Hebrews refused to cooperate, thank God. And so Pharaoh then took off the gloves. He issued a death decree, infanticide by drowning. Can you imagine a more cruel way for a parent to have to deal with their child than to just place them out into the water and let them drown? History says that the Egyptian Pharaoh wore a coiled serpent on his crown. If you've seen any of the old movies, even the Ten Commandments, you remember that coiled serpent on his crown that was a symbol of Satan, and the devil still is out to attack our children. And I'm not talking about child snatchers and pedophiles and drug dealers and gangs and school shooters. Our kids are being threatened in many, many more, even subtle ways. What your child thinks and believes is under assault on a daily basis by a materialistic, godless, socialistic media, by a sexualized and coarsening culture, by a godless and violent entertainment industry. All want to capture the heart and mouth of your child just as if they were being thrown to the crocodiles. Crocodiles of a different sort circle the lives of our kids today, and parents have to be vigilant and, like Jochebed, stay in the protection mode. Our text tells us that for 3 months, Amram and Jochebed spent enormous effort hiding and sheltering their baby. Can you imagine what that would have been like? They fed Moses, they changed him, they occupied him so he wouldn't cry, they prayed daily that he wouldn't catch the colic or cough. They prayed daily that he wouldn't cry out at the wrong time with the wrong Egyptian walking by. You can only imagine Jochebed went to bed every night totally exhausted, mentally, emotionally, physically, in every way. As if you're a parent of a young child today, I would imagine that's how you go to bed most nights. Parenting is a tough gig. It's not for the faint of heart. One day, parents, your kids will be equipped to make their own choices and fend for themselves, but until then, you have to protect them. And the second thing I see here that's amazing that Hebrews mentions it and Exodus mentions it is that Jochebed saw the tremendous potential in her child. According to the historian Josephus, Amram was a man of prayer. He had been interceding for the people, asking God for someone to deliver Israel from slavery. Now watch this. Amram has been praying to God, begging God with intercessory prayer for a deliverer to rescue God's people and remove them from Egyptian slavery and bondage. And lo and behold, God answers the prayer, and he's going to answer it through the son of Amram himself. Wow. One night, Amram has a vision. The Lord promised him a son to deliver the Hebrews, and God said of the boy, his memory shall be famous for as long as the world exists. We're told the excited, expectant dad awoke and communicated that vision to his wife, Jochebed. And they had clues, mom and dad did, of their child's destiny before he was born. But upon his birth, they really realized just how special he was going to be. What a unique baby, Hebrews 11:23 says. A special baby, Exodus 2:2 says. In fact, the historian Josephus tells us Moses was so handsome as an infant that when he was moved into the court of the Pharaoh by the Pharaoh's daughter, people would go out of their way to walk by the nursery just to admire his good looks. Now, I can understand that because my parents had the same problem with my brother, not with me. But Jochebed was a tremendous mom. She saw her child's quality and potential from the very beginning. You see, good moms believe in God and they believe in their child. Even when the evidence may suggest something different, good moms believe in God and believe in their child. They sense and see a beauty and a value in every single child. It's terrible when a parent's own fears hold back their child. Because if your parent doesn't believe in you, who will? If your mom or your dad doesn't believe in you, who will? I can just imagine, for instance, George Washington's mother saying, when he had blown a week's allowance on something foolish, "George, you never did understand money." Yeah, right. Or can you imagine the trauma Samuel Morse, the inventor of the telegraph and the Morse code, must have endured when his mom scolded him and said, "Sam, stop tapping your fingers, it's driving me crazy." Or how about Neil Armstrong's mother saying, "Neil, you have no more business taking flying lessons than the man in the moon." It's sad when a parent discourages their child's potential. Parents should be out front, seeing the potential of their child, encouraging it, planning for it, motivating it, and then giving it every opportunity to sprout. But there was a third thing she did that was so valuable. She prayed for God's providence to guide her child. Now, understand the word providence. Providence is God's overarching intervention in human affairs. It's his involvement in and beyond our circumstances. In and beyond our circumstances. Providence is God's means of accomplishing his purposes and events beyond our control. I wish I had the time to stand here today to tell you the various ways that God's providence has affected my life through the years. I am a big, big believer in the providence of God. And one of the ways that you see it is in this incredible story in Scripture that we're looking at today. There comes a point when every parent, when they are no longer in control of where their child goes and what their child does and who their child is with. And in those moments, a parent has to trust in God's love for their child and has to trust in his overarching providence. And that's what they did. After about 3 months of carefully caring for their baby and making sure the baby doesn't cry, making sure the baby is not found out, there comes a moment when still they know they're going to have to give the baby up. So when she could no longer hide him, she got a basket made of papyrus reeds and waterproofed it with tar and pitch and trusting in the providence of God and praying like every parent eventually has to do when they let them go, she put the baby in the basket and laid it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile River. And whenever I read the Bible, and I think I've told you this before about when you're trying to read and understand the Bible and make sense of it, and first of all, you have to do it in its context, but secondly, what I do is I run a movie in my mind. I try to picture this in my mind, and I try to picture Jochebed creating a floating bassinet for her son Moses and laying him out, the moment where she had to lay him out on what had become a watery grave for thousands of Hebrew infants. How that must have affected and impacted her. She let go of her son into God's loving and providential arms. There's a comparable story that happened a few years ago in New York City, believe it or not. A remarkable story that just has to be God's providence. I don't know how else you could describe it. It couldn't be mere luck. It couldn't be mere happenstance. When Tresinda Fox, third floor tenement apartment building, caught fire, Tresinda's 1-month-old infant began to choke on the billowing black smoke. And you know, most people who die in a fire do not die from being burned up. They die from smoke inhalation. And a 1-month-old's lungs are not developed at all. They can go very, very quickly to smoke. And she knew that. So Tresinda held her son out the window of the burning building for as long as she could. But then she was starting to succumb to the smoke inhalation. And her arms were starting to give way, and she knew she couldn't bring the baby back into the building at all, and she had to turn her baby loose. And the baby fell 3 floors into the loving, providential arms of a New York housing authority employee named Felix Vasquez. He saw the situation developing and ran to position himself under it. Now, first of all, Felix Vasquez just happened to be a part-time firefighter in the New York Fire Department. Secondly, he happened to be a former minor league baseball, get this, what position? You got that right. A firefighter and a baseball catcher. And he perfectly caught the baby, as a catcher should do. And he immediately performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, as a firefighter should do. And his measures saved the baby's life. And here are the 3 of them after the incident. Obviously, Felix Vasquez was hailed a hero, but in a sense it wasn't Felix that saved the child, as it was a mom's decision to trust in God's providence and let go, because if she had not, and she said, I was praying the whole time. She said, I was praying the whole time that God would have someone catch him, that God would have someone catch him. But she had to let him go. If she'd pulled him back in, held him close to her breast, he'd have died. And as I thought about that true story, I thought about, that's the way we are often. If she had held on to her baby too long, he would have suffocated. And figuratively speaking, that's the mistake some Christian parents make. They hold on too long, and the child becomes smothered. Parents have to know when to hold on to their kids when they're young and provide them protection. But there comes a point where a parent has to let go and let God. And let providence take over, because that child is going to go their way and do their thing anyway. And they're going to resent you smothering them or holding on to them too tightly anyway. Now, I've been teaching parenting classes for 40 years. And I've been telling in every parenting class I've ever taught, there are only two things we can give our children. One is roots and one is wings. You want to give them roots. You are there to protect them, to teach them values. And you drive those values deep down into the ground like roots. But then there comes a point where you have no choice but to release them and give them wings as you pray for the providence of God to take over in their life. That's what Jochebed did. It's ironic, but if safety is the sole priority of your parenting, it could actually prove to be dangerous to your child. The initial impulse of a caring parent might to make life just as easy as possible for their child, but trust me, that is not the best long-term strategy. When it comes to what kids need, easy is not always better. They need to know how to fail. They need to feel how it feels to fail. They need to know how to work to be successful. They need to learn how to overcome their own problems. Because life can be hard and parents won't always be there to shelter a child. That's why from the day a child is born, a parent should begin the process Jochebed began of letting go. That can be risky. Imagine the risk Jochebed took when she laid the baby Moses in the basket and pushed him out into the river. I do not know how she did it. She didn't control the current, but she believed in the God who does. She couldn't control where the crocodiles were in the Nile River, but she believed in a God who does. She believed in a God who was downstream in her son's life, moving scenes and positioning props and organizing people in order to accomplish his purposes in her son's life. And listen to what happened as we conclude the story. Soon Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe in the river, and her attendants walked along the riverbank. When the princess saw the basket among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it for her. And when the princess opened it, she saw the baby, and the little boy was crying, and the princess felt sorry for him. "This must be one of the Hebrew children," she said. Then the baby's sister approached the princess. "Should I go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" she asked. "Yes, do," the princess replied. So the girl went and called the baby's mother. "Take this baby and nurse him for me," the princess told the baby's mother, "and I will pay you for your help." So the woman took her baby home and nursed him. Do you see what I see? The amazing hand of God's providence. Moses gets adopted by the Pharaoh's daughter. He goes from Egypt's most wanted to Egypt's most wealthy as a member of the royal family. And because Jochebed believed God enough to let go of her son, she stayed in the picture, and Pharaoh's daughter is paying her to nurse her own son. Moms, imagine getting paid to nurse your baby. Did you hear me? Imagine getting paid to nurse your baby. In Hebrews 11:23, in the Hall of Fame of Faith, it says, By faith, Amram and Jochebed raised Moses. They raised Moses. And to be a good parent today, it still takes faith. Faith enough to hold on to your child and protect them. Faith enough to look at your child and see their extraordinary potential as one created in the very image of God. And faith enough to let go of your child when the time comes. And pray for and trust God's providence. Hey, we've got some Jochebeds in here today, I can tell you that much. I know a lot of these mothers personally. I know one real well. And we've got some of these mothers in here today, and may I say of you, we appreciate you. We love you. We trust you. We see your child's potential, but we see your potential. And we are so grateful to have the mothers of Gulf Coast Church of Christ among us.